of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is the highest-ranking elected woman in American history. All of us are very proud of her. Now she has a new book that's called Know Your Power. It's personal as well as talks about her life now in Congress, and it's her journey from homemaker to House Speaker. So please welcome Madam Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So I didn't get, everybody got a kiss and I didn't. Is it anything political? There we go. Okay. I said this is personal because it's how you went from, from a housewife with 5 kids and a devoted husband to where you are today. So speaking of devoted husband, your husband is sitting in the front row. Your
Pelosi with my daughter Alexandra.
Yeah. So before we really discuss affairs of state, is it true that your husband picks out your clothes? Because he told me earlier you have no taste.
Well,
didn't you say that to me?
Time. I didn't say taste. I said time.
So he does the shopping.
I do very well by Paul. I'm very fortunate that he urges me on, and he has good taste. So. Thank you, Paul.
You raised so many children. When did you have time to shop or do anything?
Never. I don't even enjoy shopping. Imagine I have 4 daughters.
And you don't cook.
I used to cook.
Yeah.
I used to cook. As I say in the book, my daughter Alexandra's here. One day she said to me, "Mother, I'm so proud of you. You're a pioneer." And I said, "Why? Because I'm a woman member of Congress and there's so few?" And she said, "No." She said, "Because remember when you used to cook and then you stopped? Well, now nobody cooks and you were one of the first to stop."
That's funny.
So we have to get on to the more serious, although that's pretty serious stuff. So we were all talking about, of course, this amazing tour that Barack Obama did, and he's way up in the polls now. Do you think this lasts, this bump?
I think it will be sustained. I think that he is making progress toward a big victory in November, and this was a way of saying that he can deal in the international arena, that there's a real thirst in the country and the world really for America to take the lead.
Right.
People know that if anything important is going to happen, America has to be in the lead on it. So of course we were all very proud of him as Americans, and I do think that it did help his presidential campaign. Yeah. You know, it reminded me, and I talk about this in the book, when I was young, I was, as a student, to the inauguration of President Kennedy. And at that inauguration, President Kennedy said something that everybody in the world knows. He said, "To the citizens of America, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." You remember that, and you perhaps have read about it in the history books.
You've seen it on TV.
And it's a bit, I mean, for those of us who were there, aware. The very next sentence, though, in that speech, President Kennedy said, "To the citizens of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what we can do working together for the freedom of mankind." And that's what I saw when Barack Obama was out there. He was saying, extending a hand of friendship, and they were extending a hand back about how we can work together to promote freedom, save the planet, eradicate disease,
like
alleviate poverty, all of those things.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just going to say, I think he, in terms of the rise in polls and his 9% lead now, I think he got the photos that will help him. I think those will last a long time. He'll be able to go back to those. But he still, when Katie Couric was interviewing him, he still didn't admit in clear terms that the surge was a success, a surge that he indeed did oppose, and we would have been in a different situation had he been making the decisions there. Do you still feel that same way, that the surge was not a success?
We had this conversation before, Elizabeth. The surge's purpose was to have a military time frame where there would be military security to enable the government of Iraq to make the political changes necessary for reconciliation. I said it before when I was here, and I say it again. Even with all of the time that has elapsed, they still have not done that.
The sectarian violence is down, civilian deaths are down. I think we need to acknowledge at least there that it is.
The security has been improved, but the purpose of the surge was to pass the laws to bring the reconciliation so we could bring our troops home safely soon, honorably and responsibly, and that has not happened. Now the government of Iraq is saying, we want you to go home. So maybe the time has come for us to sit down with them and figure that out.
I'm curious because we're talking about Barack, and I'm curious because you seem very adamantly against Barack and Hillary running as a team, and I've always wanted to ask you why, but I lost your number.
Call the Capitol and ask for the Speaker.
Ask for the Speaker, but why were you so adamant?
Well, no, what I said was it's up
And
to...
you still are.
The nominee chooses the vice president. If Hillary Clinton were the nominee, we wouldn't want to be foisting someone on her.
Yeah, but you are not in favor of it. It's not.
No, and if he were the nominee, it's up to them to choose. I think that I was asked, will this happen? I said, no, I don't think it will happen.
I have another question for you. You've ruled against impeaching George Bush and Dick Cheney, and now Kucinich is trying to pass that. Why do you insist on not impeaching these people so that the world and America can really see the crimes that they've committed?
Well, I think it was important. When I became Speaker, and this, by the way, a very important position, President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, I saw it as my responsibility to try to bring a much divided country together to the extent that we could. I thought that impeachment would be divisive for the country. In terms of what we set out to do, we wanted to raise the minimum wage, give the biggest increase in veterans benefits, the veterans in the 77-year history, the veterans pass the research for stem cell research, all of that. This week we're going to pass equal pay for equal work. It has been a long time. We're going to pay equity. We're going to pass legislation for product safety, for toys that children put in there. There's an agenda that you have to get done. You have to try to do it in a bipartisan way. The president has to sign it. If somebody had a crime that the president had committed, that would be a different story.
Can they still do it after he's out?
When I interviewed you last year, you had just begun and you were going to clean up the mess, remember? You look around this country, 75% of the country, forget George Bush, thinks that Congress is doing a lousy job.
Well, I don't disagree with that, because largely it's predicated on ending the war in Iraq. That's the main question, and we were not successful. In our House of Representatives, I'm very proud of our members because they voted overwhelmingly over and over again to bring the war to an end, bring the troops home safely and soon, send it to the Senate, and it hits a dead end. But in terms of that particular standard, I would say I disapprove as well. But we passed some of the things I just mentioned, the energy bill. We worked in a bipartisan way, innovation agenda. We have to create jobs, expand health care, protect the American people, and educate our children. And you can't do that if you're trying to impeach the president at the same time, unless you have the goods that this president committed a crime. So just
did it to Clinton. Go ahead.
Well, they didn't have the goods, and it was wrong. And it was wrong. And it was wrong when they did that. Not that I have total disagreement with the president on the war, the reason why we went in, which was based on a false premise. But that's a different story than saying, can we try to get something accomplished for people who have concerns about the economy and the rest?
Okay, so I just want to tell them, first of all, I have to say, no matter what people feel about Congress, I think we're very proud that there is a woman who's Speaker of the House.
I appreciate you saying that.
And this book, you know, when you were asking earlier, Joy, well, how do you do this with 5 children? This book will tell you how you do it. And everyone in the audience is getting a copy of